सचीसुत गौरवरं प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् करतालवलं कलकान्तरवं मृदुवाद्यसुवीनिकया मधुरम् निजभक्तिगुणावृतनाट्यकरं प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् युगधर्मयुतं पुनर्नन्दसुतं धरणीसुचित्रं भवभावोचितम् तनुध्यानचितं निजवासयुतं प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरं प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् अरुणं नयनं चरणं वसनं वदने स्खलितं स्वकनामधरम् कुरुते सुरसं जगतजीवनं प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरं 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 प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् जय श्री सच्चित की जय। Did you sing this? Radhe Radhe Bolo. Did you sing this today? Did you sing this today? No, did you sing it today?
No, I have not sung.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just give it to him back here. Okay, distribute. Okay. Yeah, distribute, but give it first back there so you can put it on the board. Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo, Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo, Hey Bolo, Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Bolo Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Bolo Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Bolo Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Bolo Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Kale Kale Gun Garwale, Balo Wala Nanda Lala Bolo. Kale Kale Gun Garwale, Balo Kisse namanita churaye de rahi hai mala olo churaye de rahi hai bitba he bolo radhe radhe bolo krishna krishna bolo radhe radhe bolo Krishna Bolo, Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo, Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo, Bolo Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Radhe Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Radhe Bolo, Krishna Krishna Bolo. Hey, Yasomati Mase Bole Sakya Kana Hame Sata Hai Bolo. के द्वार में आकर मक्खन रोज चुराता है Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo. Radhe Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo. मैया लेकर जादी हाथ में पास बुला कर दाम काया बोलो मैया लेकर जादी हाथ में पास बुला कर दाम काया अच्छी हंसी का बाहर निकला नाचवा कोरोनाया बोलो हो बोलो राधे राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो हे राधे राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो बोलो राधे राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो राधे राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो बोलो राधे राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो सखियन कहने लगी है कितनी निष्ठुरे मैया बोलो सखियन कहने लगी है कितनी निष्ठुरे मैया मन ही मन मुस्काए मोहन कितनी बोली है मैया बोलो मन मुस्काए मोहन कितनी बोली है मान हो बोलो राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो राधे राधे बोलो कृष्णा कृष्णा बोलो हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ऐसे है सनवरिया हमारे रसिक पार राज ज्ञान श्याम का हमारे रसिक पार राज नाम श्याम का प्रेम से मिलकर जाओ पालो संकीर्तन हरि नाम का हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे हे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Krishna bolo, Radhe Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo, Radhe Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo. Bolo Radhe Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo. Radhe Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo. Bolo Radhe Radhe bolo, Krishna Krishna bolo. Bolo Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Nandi ki jai, Srimati Radharani ki jai, Srimati Shri Radha Nilamadava ki jai, Gaur Nandi, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Grantha Raj ki jai. So today we're going to hear about some things that are different in the spiritual world from the material world. We live in a material world. And when we hear about the spiritual world, it seems very difficult to believe. But today we're going to explain some differences between the two and why it's so difficult for materialistically inclined people to understand spiritual knowledge. So in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 3rd verse, Lord Krishna says, you can put 8th chapter, 3rd verse. Ananda, 8th chapter, 3rd verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatman Uchyate Swabhavo Dhyatman Uchyate Swabhavo Dhyatman Uchyate Bhuta Bhavo Bhavakaro Bhuta Bhavakaro Bhuta Darakpakaro Bhuta Darakpavo Visarga Karma Samgitaha Visarga Karma Samgitaha Visarga Karma Samgitaha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmanuchyate Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgitaha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmanuchyate Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgitaha. Anybody want to try? Go ahead. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatma Uchyate Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgita. Anybody else? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatma Uchyate
Visarga Karma Samjnitaha
Shri Bhagavan
Uvacha
Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavadbhavo Karo Visarga Karma Samgita.
Some of the ladies would like to try.
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavadbhavo Karo Visarga Karma Samjite.
Anybody?
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksaram Brahma Paramam Swabhavadhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavodhavakaro Visarga Karma Samjitaha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of material bodies and living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. So here, we see that number one, the soul is eternal and actually transcendental. And the nature of the soul is to be an individual, called Adhyatma. Always an individual. He or she is always an individual. And they cannot be destroyed. Actions pertaining to the development of material bodies or living entities is called karma, or fruit of activity. So, if we become attracted to the material world, and we want to dominate, exploit, and enjoy material nature, we get caught up in the laws of karma. And then we begin to transmigrate from one type of body to another, depending on our previous karma and our desires. Okay, so we see we are all eternal, And we are always a person. Our individual personality and our eternality cannot be changed. However, by falsely identifying with the material world and developing material desires, we get trapped by the laws of karma. And then we begin to change different material bodies. Even in one life, we have different material bodies, from childhood to infancy, or to young child, to a teenager, to a fully grown, mature human being, and then to middle age, and then old age, and then death. Our body is always changing, and at death, as long as we still have material desires, and we want to dominate things and exploit things for our own sense gratification, we're forced to take another material body and go through this unnecessary process of birth, death, old age, and disease. So now, in the purport or explanation, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes, Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing. Now, just for information, the word Brahman in Sanskrit has different meanings. In this context, it's referring to the living entity, to you and me, because we have an eternal soul. It can also refer to Krishna, the Supreme Brahman. It can also refer to the effulgence coming from Krishna's body called the Brahma Jyoti. And it can also refer to the entire material creation. But in this specific context, it's referring to individual souls like us. But beyond Brahman, there's Para-Brahman. That means there's the Super Soul, or Krishna, present in the heart of every living entity. Brahman refers to the living entity, and the Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. Now that's a very significant statement. That means that our real nature is spiritual. And in the spiritual world, we don't know birth, death, old age, and disease. We don't experience those things. But when we become attracted to the material world, we undergo those horrible things: birth, old age, disease, and death. And we change different bodies. We change bodies in this life, and then we change bodies after we die. In material consciousness, the living entity's nature is to try to be the lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. In other words, to serve Lord Krishna. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation, by the force of material consciousness. So everything depends on what's going on in our consciousness. If our consciousness is corrupted by the desire to avoid serving God or Krishna and just serve ourselves in a selfish way, and to do that, we want to dominate matter and people for our benefit. And in that way, gradually, we become more and more entangled by the laws of karma, and we're forced to undergo continual birth, death, old age, and disease. It's a very, very horrible thing, because our real nature is not that. Our real nature is to be eternal, to be happy, to be peaceful, and to live eternally in the spiritual world, where there's no taxes, no wars, no envy or hatred, just absolute ecstasy, serving Krishna. Just like in a temple, when everyone's serving the deities nicely, there's no fighting, there's no arguing, everyone is happy. Because when the deities are very beautifully dressed, when people come and see the deity, they become happy. And when they hear nice things, like what we're going to hear now, they become happy. And when they have nice prasadam, they become happy. And when you're dancing, they become happy. And they feel peace. They feel that this is real life, where I don't have any anxiety, I don't have any fear, I don't have any doubts. I'm simply serving God and glorifying God, Krishna, and Radha and Krishna together, the divine couple. And therefore, and they're very beautifully dressed, they have beautiful flower garlands, a nice incense offered to them. This is the spiritual world. Why would we want to continue trying to dominate the material world? When you serve the Lord and offer all your services to the Lord, He protects you. He makes life easy for you. In fact, we can see what Krishna says in the 3rd chapter. He says, Sahayagya Prajashishva Puraraja Prajapati Ananya Parsavistyadvam Esavos Vistakamaduk. This is the 3rd chapter, 10th verse. And Krishna says, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, or sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. And Srila Prabhupada explains this beautiful verse. He says, first of all, he explains the purpose of material creation. He says, the material creation by the Lord of creatures, Lord Vishnu, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to Godhead. That's the purpose of the material world. And Krishna helps us achieve this purpose in 2 ways. One, He comes and speaks Bhagavad Gita, which answers every question we could have to clear the path to engaging full-time in the service of the Lord. When you engage full-time in the service of the Lord, it doesn't mean you ignore your family, you ignore your job or anything like that, or your children. It just means that you learn the art of work by which every action, every desire you have is dovetailed or directed toward pleasing the Lord. You still eat, you still sleep, you still work, you still come to the temple, you do all these things, but you've readjusted your lifestyle and you've readjusted your desires and the people that you associate with and the activities you engage in, so that everything is directed toward pleasing the Lord. This is called the art of work, yoga kosha. So here it says, this material world, the real purpose that was created is a reformatory. A reformatory is like a prison. Prisoners go to the jail, but the hope is that they will be reformed. And then they can come back into normal society. And the same way, those people like us who revolted against Krishna, and we thought we could emulate Krishna in the material world, we're given a chance in the material world to rehabilitate this perverted mentality of wanting to be the controller and the enjoyer independent of God and go back to the spiritual world. It's a chance for us. That's the real purpose of material creation. The purpose of material creation is not enjoying eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals. That's not the purpose. One time I was the servant of a priest. I was living with a priest, and I would go to church with him every day, and I was serving him. And one day I asked him, I said, what is exactly the purpose of life? And he said, purpose of life is to enjoy. I said, really? I said, I thought you have to do some sacrifice. He said, no. He said, if you don't enjoy this world, how are you going to enjoy the other world? Now, he followed that philosophy, and sometime after that, he fell down from the priesthood and got married and opened a shop. He said, that is not the purpose of life, is to enjoy at a very low level. It's actually a low level, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's what the animals do. So we're not meant just to do that. We're meant to understand who we are in relationship with God, how to relate to the material world, and how to have positive relationships with other living entities. In that way, we can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. We can become free of this unnecessary chain of birth, death, old age, and disease. It's completely unnecessary because our real nature is eternal. So then Prabhupada explains, all living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, do a little survey. You can ask people, is there anything missing in your life? I bet you they'll never mention God. They'll say, yeah, I'm missing my girlfriend, I'm missing this job that I wanted, I'm missing this stock, I thought it was good, and I lost some money, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. But just see if they say, I'm missing God. Try it. Do a survey. And you'll see very few people would say, I'm missing God. Very, very few. Maybe none. What do you think, Bobby? Would they say, I'm missing Jesus or something like that?
I'm sure there are some people who would say that.
You sure?
Yeah,
In Boeing?
probably.
Let's do a survey. Try it this week. Next week you can come back and tell me. You know, ask your relatives, ask friends, ask co-workers. Don't say, are you missing God? You say, are you missing something in your life? And see what they say. Very interesting. I'm going to ask you now next week. All right? This is a survey. Everyone likes to do surveys, right? So we're going to do a survey. Okay, so the material, all living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because their forgetfulness of their relationship to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are to help us understand this eternal relation. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaishcha sarvir aham eva vedya. That is, the Lord says that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna, or Him. In the Vedic hymns it says, Patim Vishwasyat Meshvaram. Therefore, the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, 2.4.20, Sri Sukadeva Goswami describes the Lord as Pati in so many ways. Pati means father. Shriya Pati, Yajna Pati, Prajapati, and so forth. The Prajapati, or the father of all living entities, is Lord Vishnu, and He is the Lord of all living creatures. Now, when we say Lord Vishnu and Krishna are synonymous. Lord Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna. He has the same powers as Krishna. He just doesn't have all the same pastimes. He doesn't play the flute, he doesn't dance with the gopis, and there are at least 5 things that Vishnu or Narayana does not do that Krishna does. But they're the same person, just functioning differently. So, just like you are the same person, but sometimes you're a little league umpire. And other times, you go and volunteer to do something. You might join, you know, a race to raise money for cancer. Or you are a father at home. Or you might be a worker in a factory, or you might be a director in a factory. These are different identities that you have, but you're still the same person. When you're the director in the factory, you're still the same person who's the father at home. You might not be doing the same thing, but you're the same person. In the same way, Krishna, He doesn't have to do everything Himself. He expands Himself. That's what we can't do. We can expand ourselves maybe in having children, but the child is a different person. Krishna can expand Himself and still be the same person in 2 different places, or many different places, or millions of different places simultaneously. We don't have that power. That's why we're different than God. But we're similar in other ways. We have an eternal soul, and we have an eternal destiny to be in relationship with Krishna. But we're given the choice to forget that. And we're also given the chance to remember it again and go back to Godhead. So here it says, the Lord says that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Him. In the Vedic hymns, it says, Patim Vishvasyat Meshwaram. Therefore, the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also, Srila Sukadeva Goswami describes the Lord as Pati. The Prajapati, or the father of all living entities, is Lord Vishnu, and he is the Lord of all living creatures, all worlds, and all beauties, and the protector of everyone. The Lord created this material world to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform yagyas, sacrifices, for the satisfaction of Vishnu, so that while in the material world they can live very comfortably without anxiety, and after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. There you go. This is the purpose of human life. It's not to invest in the stock market, and one day it goes up, you're happy, next day it goes down, you're miserable. It's not to philander. It's not to get angry and consider someone your enemy. These are all unnecessary things. They're not related to your relationship to Krishna. But we forget that, and because we forget that, we get into all these complicated situations, convoluted material relationships, and political polarization, and ethnic violence, and so many things that all are caused by forgetfulness of God. We are all the children of God. We all have the same origin. We're all one big family. There are what you would call temporary differences, but not because of the soul, because of the body. Our souls have all the same quality: eternity, bliss, and knowledge with an individual soul. That's our real nature. But when we become attached to the body, we develop all kinds of false aliases and false identities. And it creates a lot of animosity sometimes, and jealousy, and envy. And we get into trouble. All that trouble is unnecessary. But as long as we identify with the body, the trouble will happen. Then it says that the Lord created this material world to enable the conditioned souls. We're conditioned by the modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. They tie us up in the karmic cycle. And to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform yagyas, or sacrifices. Now, what is the yagya recommended for this age of Kali, which is the most difficult age to make spiritual progress? Previous ages, like Dwapara or Treta Yuga or Satya Yuga, it was much easier to engage in spiritual activity. This age is very negative. So what is the prescribed yagya for this age? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Keva, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatirajana. It's chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is the recommended sacrifice. All other sacrifice, like you can do Ganga Puja, you can do this puja or that puja. They will not be performed correctly in this age. They were performed correctly in previous ages because the Brahmins were much more qualified. In this age, the Brahmins are not qualified to perform those yagyas correctly. They do them, but they're not successful. Why? Because you have to analyze the life and activities of the Brahmana to make sure he's a real Brahmana. Like if he's a part-time Brahmana, he works in Microsoft, and part-time he does yagyas or pujas, he's not a Brahmana. Right? If he earns a living by doing yagyas or sacrifices, he's not a Brahmana. Brahmanas accept donations because they teach people the Shastra, or they perform rituals and teach people how to do the rituals also, or they beg. But they do not work in the sense of being employed or being remunerated. They don't try, they have a vow of poverty. They don't have, gold chains and a big belly and a BMW. That's not a Brahmana. They don't live in these big houses and they have servants and, people ironing their clothes and things like that. That's not a Brahmana. Brahmana is strictly independent, and he has a vow of poverty. People give him donations, but he distributes it. The way they did charity before, kings would give huge amount of wealth to brahmanas, and they would distribute it because they lived with the people. They knew who needed it, who was sincere, who was not sincere, and they would give it all away. You have modern examples of it, like Tukaram, if you know his story. He always gave everything away. His wife got really upset with him, but he didn't care. You know, I mean, they had minimal, but every time he would get a large amount of wealth, he would give it away. He was a real brahmana. Okay? It's not that the brahmana, you know, is doing Bhagavad Saptaha so he can collect money to get his daughter married. That's not a brahmana. I mean, they look like brahmanas. They're saying the mantras, ha, hu, hi, ha, ha, but that doesn't mean they're brahmanas because their mentality is corrupted. That's why you have so much problems in India. You know, the British corrupted the Brahminical class in India when they changed the educational system in 1825 by Lord Macaulay. And they cut off the whole educational system that was going on for hundreds and thousands of years in India, where every kid had a primary education that prepared them for the rest of their life. And Brahmanas were not the only teachers, but only about 40% of the teachers were Brahmanas. The rest were local people. They taught in the vernacular language of their province or their state, and every kid was educated. After 100 years of this British education, the first thing they did, they wiped out vernacular languages. You had to learn in English. Secondly, there used to be at least 40, sometimes 45% of the land in the village that was used for funding the schools and the teachers, the temples, and irrigation for the fields. The British cut it off. They cut it down to 5%, which means it was not enough to support the local schools. And they forced all the kids to be taught English and English common schools. And because of that, the Brahmins excelled in those schools. The kids of the Brahmins excelled because they had a little more training in a natural environment. And the other kids were ignored. So in 1932, Gandhi got up in a British assembly and he castigated the British. He said, "You have ruined our whole educational system. It's been 100 years now, and now there's massive illiteracy in our country." He said, "Before there was no illiteracy. Every kid learned how to read in his own language. But now there are many illiterates in this country. You ruined our educational system." He said, he was really upset, and he was right. And what happened, because the Brahmins excelled and they were like corrupted by the British, they started to take jobs in the British colonial government. And what happened? People started to hate them because they took the jobs that the normal people used to get before. You see? And the normal kids were not being educated, only the Brahmin kids. And this is why there was such a animosity against Brahmins. By the time you get into the liberation of India, people hated Brahmins. You go to Kerala, you go to Tamil Nadu and other places, the Brahmanas are, you know, they're not even allowed anymore to get government jobs, or they used to be like that. You say, is this right or wrong? Am I saying something that's wrong? Huh? Because the Brahmins became corrupted. They should have a vow of poverty. All the great Brahmins, like Chanakya Pandit, he was a big Brahmana. He refused to take any salary from the king, Chandrasekhar. And then you have Vidura. He was the brother of Dhritarashtra. He refused to take any money from his brother or from his brother's kids. He would come to the palace every day, give advice, and he'd go away and go beg or do something else, but he would not accept any salary. So we see the Brahmins got corrupted in India, and because of that, they used to actually hate the Sudras. And the Sudras said, wait a minute, our own people don't like us. They became Muslims. There were no Muslims before in India. Even the invading Muslims were not like millions of people. They were like smaller armies, maybe at most 10, 20, or 30,000 men. India had a huge population, but a whole number of lower class Indians who were being shunned by the Brahminical class converted to Islam. So instead of hating the Sudras, they started to hate the Muslims. See? But yet, when Genghis Khan, who was not a Muslim, invaded Baghdad and destroyed the caliphate of Baghdad, took over basically most of the Muslim world, or at least the center of it, in 100 years, the Muslims converted all these wild people from Mongolia into Muslims. How come that didn't happen in India? Why couldn't they convert the Muslims into Hindus? Because they were no longer qualified. They had become corrupted by the British educational system, and they started taking jobs and so forth, and were not performing yajnas properly. So we see that, and this is going on today also. Even today, the Brahmanas and the Pandas, they don't accept Dalits in the temple. These are Hindu people. Why can't they go into a temple, in some temples? The same nonsense is going on today, and it's weakening Hinduism all over India, all over the world. Okay, so here Krishna said, Prabhupada explains, that so while in the material world people can live very comfortably without anxiety, and after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. That is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of jagyas, or sacrifices, and the one that's recommended for the sage is Harinam Sankirtan, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious, notice the word gradually, and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan Yagya, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures, and this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all persons in this age. Sankirtan Yagya and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 32nd verse, as follows, with the special reference to the Sankirtan Yagya. Krishna Varnyam Chisak Krishna Sangapangas Parsadam Yajnai Sankirtana Parir Yajanti Mam Yajanti Hisu Medasaha. In this age of Kali, Kali Yuga, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates, by performance of Sankirtan Yagya. Other yagyas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in the age of Kali, but the Sankirtan Yagya is easy and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita also, 9:14. Satatam kirtayantamam chitantas cha ajitavata namasyantas chamam bhakta nitya yukta vasate. Krishna explains how you can recognize who is a Vaishnava. He says that a Vaishnava is always chanting the glories of the Lord. He is always engaged in the service of the Lord. He is always engaged in respect to the Lord in all endeavors. So this is 9th chapter, 14th verse. And he says, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination. Sometimes people ask me, where does it say you should chant Hare Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita? I didn't see it. I read the Bhagavad Gita 10 times, I didn't see it. This is the verse. 9:14. Satatam kirtayantam. What is kirtan? Kirtan is not trum, 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 trum. That's not kirtan. Kirtan is Krishna, 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. That is kirtan. Right? So, this verse says, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Okay, so now we understand what is the real purpose of human life. The purpose is that we should learn how to engage in the service of Krishna and perform this holy sacrifice of Sankirtan and live a very simple, happy, and life full of affection and love, and at the end of life, go back to Godhead. Is that a bad plan or a good plan? Sounds good to me, right? You live a good life and you go back to Godhead, and Krishna makes it easy for you. Right? Therefore, it says here that in the age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtan and Jagya. Other Jagyas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in this age of Kali, but the Sankirtan Yagya is easily and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita, also 9:14. So, we go out on Sankirtan Yagya every Saturday afternoon with our food truck also. We feed people and we chant Hare Krishna, and we give out books about Krishna. Some of them are free, some of them we ask for donation. And we invite people to chant and dance, to perform Harinam Sankirtan. This is the Yuga Dharma for this Kali Yuga, this age of hypocrisy and quarrel. If we do this, we can transform all of society, at least in Seattle and the whole state of Washington, if we do this on a regular basis. You should try it. You should come out with us and perform, because this is your Dharma. It's not my Dharma. I was born in the United States, right? This is your Dharma. You're born in Bharat. And anyone born in Bharat has a duty to learn Krishna consciousness and to spread this movement, to save humanity from self-destruction, which is what's going on now. And you know, in Sammamish, 2 kids recently died of overdose of drugs in Skyline High School. Another kid committed suicide in the other school. What's the name of the other school? Eastlake High School. Yeah. And all over the country, young kids are committing suicide. Why is this? This doesn't make sense. Why should a young person, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, commit suicide? Because they're being forced either to, in the case of many times of Indian kids, to be academically better than everyone else. And the pressure of that sometimes makes them go crazy and frustrated. Or they go on social media and someone cancels them. My gosh, that's the worst thing in the world, when you get canceled. You're no longer a friend, right? Or sometimes people bully kids on social media. See, at night, once they become 13, 14, 15 years old, they have their own computer and they lock themselves in the room. So the parents have to knock on the door in their own house. Let me in. The kids say, no, I'm busy, I'm doing my homework. They're not doing their homework. Sometimes they're doing their homework, but many times they're on social media. And if the door's open, you come in, right away they change the page on the computer, so you don't see where they were, you see? Don't think this is, not happening. It is happening. In fact, just recently, one of our devotees, there was what you call a homecoming party, because when school starts, they have a homecoming party in many of these high schools. Now, at first the daughter said, I'm not going to go, I don't want to go. And he said, okay. But then she found out all her friends are going. So then she said, I want to go. So the father said, okay. So when he took her, see, I was lecturing, I wrote a little booklet also, you can get that booklet, in which I explained Prabhupada's theory of education. And in that book, Prabhupada definitely says that these modern schools are slaughterhouses of children. A slaughterhouse. What happens in a slaughterhouse? Their spiritual life is killed. Right? So no one believed it. They said, ha 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 ha. Hagvilas always talks nonsense like this. Ha ha ha. This person took his daughter to the homecoming party, right down the street here, right? And he was shocked. All the girls walking in were half, or more than half naked. And his daughter, of course, he wouldn't let her walk in naked to the party. And he was shocked. And he came back and today he told me, Prabhu, you were right. And I didn't believe you, but I saw it with my own eyes. And I was taking my daughter there. I couldn't stop her. So this is what's happening. And unless we wake up and understand, you have to analyze the qualifications of a teacher. It doesn't matter whether it's a public school or college or university or elementary school. If you submit your children to associate with materialistic persons 8 hours a day, you are sending them to a slaughterhouse. and their spiritual aspirations will be destroyed in a matter, especially when they get to high school and college, especially. You don't have to believe me, but one day if your kid tells you, Dad, Mom, I don't really believe in God, and you'll see, what happened? I thought, the kid was a good kid. And they were before, because they were too young to say no to coming to the temple. But when they get older, they say, I don't want to go to the temple. I don't believe it. And you get shocked. Okay, so now I'm just going to finish this. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to the earth in the form of rain and then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by human beings and by men and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself or herself to return to God. So, there are sacrifices and there are sacrifices. There are Rolex watches and there are Rolex watches. You can buy a Rolex watch in Hong Kong for $35. It looks exactly like the real thing. In fact, a lot of people walk around with them. They only paid $35. But is it a Rolex? No. It says Rolex on it. It looks like a Rolex. But if you take it to the watchmaker and he opens it up and says, this is not a Rolex, this is a piece of junk. Where'd you get this? Well, I bought it for $35 in Hong Kong. I say, you're an idiot. You see? So in the same way, there are sacrifices and there are sacrifices. There are jagyas and there are jagyas. There are jagyas only meant for material benefit, and there are jagyas meant for spiritual benefit. Now, when you perform the jagyas for material benefit, you get the benefit. And in the 9th chapter, it explains, in the very nice verse, that after death, you're promoted to the higher material planets where life and sense gratification is much greater. It says, Try vidya mam somapa putra papa. It says, those who study the Vedas and drink the soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. And then it says, Te tam bhukva swarga lokam vishalam. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure, and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the 3 Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. So there are sacrifices and there are sacrifices. There are real sacrifices meant for spiritual advancement. That's called Harinam Sankirtan. And there are sacrifices like Lalita Sahasranama, or this Sahasranama, or that thing, or this puja, or that puja, Ganga puja, this puja. Most of the time, they're meant for material benefit. Especially when you do Satyanarayana puja and the Brahmin says, say mama. Now, what does mama mean?
Myself.
Huh?
For me.
For me.
For me.
But is that the purpose of sacrifice? For me? The purpose of sacrifice is to please God. It's not to please myself. But as soon as the Brahmin says, say mama, immediately get up and run as fast as you can out the door. Because it's going to capture you in the cycle of birth and death by performing those type of sacrifices. You should only perform sacrifices that are meant to please Bhagavan Krishna or Vishnu or Narayana or your mama. Okay, so we'll stop right there. There's a lot more to explain, but we'll stop right there. And is Rituja here? Are you here, Rituja? Huh? She's not here?
She's waiting. She's
Okay.
Mama is sitting.
So are there any questions? It has to be one question. And then we'll have Arti and Prashad. One question. Anybody? Come on, you know the rule. No questions, no food. If there's one question, the whole spiritual experience is learned through questions and answers. The entire Bhagavad Gita is questions and answers. The entire Padma Purana is questions and answers between Padmavati and Lord Shiva. All the Vedic scriptures are questions and answers. One question. You can't agree with everything I said. Come on. Yes. Okay, you represent the demons. Go ahead. Say something.
Good.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You say in the lecture. My English is not good.
That's right.
No voice here.
Is the microphone working? Okay, just speak loud.
Okay. So you said we should miss God, and we don't miss Him now.
You missed out?
No, I'm not missing God.
So you're telling the truth.
Yeah, but sometimes we
Speak loud.
missing some pure devotee, some devotee because of his purity. Is it the same if we miss for pure devotee? We like to see him, we missing for him because of his pure qualities. Is it the same, like a missing God, or?
This is a good question. The answer is yes, if it's a genuine pure devotee, yes, because the pure devotee is a representative of God. He's not God. He or she is not God, but it's a representative of God. So if you feel separation from a pure devotee, it is very good. It's spiritual experience. See? Now, some people feel separation from Elvis Presley, right? But that has nothing to do with God. He has nothing to do with God, right? But if there's a pure devotee, it's like I feel separation from Prabhupada, right? Because I had met him, a certain number of times, and it was something so rare that I can never forget. But most people, they might feel separation from a girlfriend or boyfriend. They might feel separation from some stock that they invested in and then lost the money. Or they might feel separation from money they lost in a casino or something like that. But to feel separation from God is a very high level of spiritual consciousness. That means you've become very well aware of what is most important in life, right? Or if you feel separation from genuine devotees, that is also a very rare thing, because you cannot forget how that person benefited you. But how did they benefit you? They help you realize your relationship with God, you see. So it's very similar to feeling separation from Krishna. Okay, good. Now I'm going to tell the people downstairs to serve prasadam. So we'll have Arti now. Haribol. So we're going to perform the Damodar Astakam now. But this month we remember this special relationship between Mother Yasoda and Krishna. It's very special. It's full of love. It's full of transcendental bliss. And we offer them a giwik, and we pray to them that we can also feel such love and devotion for Krishna as Mother Yasoda does. Okay, you want to get me to Namam Vishwaram Sachi Anandaru Vasantadam Koti Vaishnava Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Om Prabhu Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shri Radha Krishna Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai, Shri Vasili Ki Jai, Shri Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Chamunamai Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakti Vidhi Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to Samadhi, all glories to Samadhi, all glories to Samadhi, all glories to Shri Guru, Shri Guru, Shri Shri Prabhupada. Namaste, So we have a special guest tonight. Her name is Rituja Indrapure. This is a pretty name. And she is a candidate for City Council in the city of Sammamish. I'd like her to introduce herself, and then a little bit later on, if you want to talk to her, she'll be downstairs ready to talk with anyone who wants to hear about how she's going to make Sammamish better for all of you. Haribol.
Thank you so much. Like Prabhuji said, my name is Rituja Indapure. I think many of you have seen me here over the years. I've lived in Sammamish for more than 17 years. I currently work at Costco for my day job, but I'm also on the Planning Commission. And I also serve on the Sammamish Y Board. So my encouragement to you is please come out and vote. The ballots should be in your mail right now, and voting day is November 5th. And if you vote early, and that always helps us. So please go out and vote. And our voices are really needed in the City Hall. So please support me. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'll be downstairs. So thank you, Prabhuji. And thank you for all your blessings. Thank you.
So if you would like to talk to Rituja Mataji, she's downstairs, and you can ask her any question you want, and I'm sure she'll give you a good answer. Also, I want to announce that on November 13th, Tulsi Gabbard is coming to Seattle. At our Ananda Mela Festival, one of her representatives wanted to know who organized this Ananda Mela Festival, because there were like thousands and thousands of people there. And they directed her to me, and I had a very nice talk with her, and she said, I want Tulsi to come to Seattle, and I would like you to help us organize some programs. I said, okay, I can do it personally. I can't do it in the name of the temple, but I can do it personally. And so we're organizing 3 programs for her, one in Microsoft that's been confirmed, one in Amazon that we're waiting for confirmation, and one at the Seattle Center that is confirmed. And that's open to the general public, and it's Seattle Center, November 13th, starting at 7 o'clock, so you're all invited. And in the meantime, please speak to Rituja. She's a very good person, and she deserves to be on the Sammamish City Council, but of course I can't recommend it because I'm not allowed to do that. We're a non-profit, but she's here to talk to you. Hare Krishna. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Namaste, Nada Sindhaya. Yamita Jaya Narasingha Jaya Narasingha Jaya Narasingha Jaya Narasingha Jaya Narasingha Hari Bol Gora Hari Bol Nita Gora Hari Bol Nita Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Nita Gora Nita Gora Premanandi Ji Jai Jeho Jeho. So now we are opening up the mic. This is a karaoke night. No, it's you have to chant Hare Krishna. Yeah. So anybody would like to say, you want to do some kirtan? You don't have to. If you want, you can.